Our speaker is Enrico Palma from Università di Catania, Italy. Today, he presents his talk on the topic Imagination, Pain, and Redemption in the Proustian Conception of Love.
Imagination, Pain, and Redemption in the Proustian Conception of Love. By Enrico Palma from University of Catania. The relationship between Proust and love was an important part of my research carried out during my PhD, then published in the volume De Scriptura, Pain and Salvation in Proust, Mimesis, Milano Udine 2024. In fact, in this investigation, I have tried to outline a possible hermeneutic of human existence starting from the Proustian masterpiece À la recherche du temps perdu, In Search of Lost Time. Unlike a work of pure literary criticism, my approach was mostly philosophical. My background was taken from the main critical interpretation on the topic, and also from great classics of literature and philosophy, including Stendhal, Heidegger, Deleuze, and Barthes. In particular, I focused on a possible application of Heidegger's existential analytics to the research, highlighting common points and formulating original concepts. The aim of the research was to define the Proustian conception of love, using a basically philosophical and hermeneutic methodology. The main hypothesis is that the Parisian writer, analyzing the feeling of love in his work, provided very plausible reasons regarding what, first of all, love requires: the redemption of existence from finitude and pain. According to Heideggerian thought, at the height of being and time, the human being is a finite temporal entity that lacks a foundation. One of the possible ways of attributing a foundation to existence, and therefore a reason for solidity, is precisely the encounter with the other in reciprocated love. Therefore, through this Heideggerian approach, my study of love in Proust has moved along this line, evaluating whether it is actually one of the possibilities of removing the finitude, solitude, and suffering of life, or whether it instead represents an illusion that causes more pain than they would like to eliminate. In this sense, we therefore touch upon the essence of the Proustian conception of love as soon as we consider the soteriological reasons that support it, namely the ineffable mystery by which love is thought of as the most direct path towards salvation. On the contrary, according to Proust, there is nothing more distant than salvation itself. My idea is that, although Proust did not solve one of the greatest existential enigmas, he explained its origin, functioning, and purposes, which, in the words of one of his first critics, Ramon Fernandez, is so defined. There is, at the core of Proust's loving sensitivity, and I always refer to love in the most general sense of the term, the regret, or at least the feeling of a lost paradise. But of a lost paradise that was, by virtue of the ironic fatality that afflicts man, an imaginary paradise. In this presentation, I choose to focus above all on love as imagination, request for salvation, and obtaining what Heidegger defined as existential authenticity. I can try to summarize my results in 3 points. Love is the product of the subject's imagination, which continuously and ceaselessly operates this miraculous transformation, always changing the material to be molded. Therefore, to put in Proust's words, the ray of our imagination always remains the same. What changes is the beloved, and she changes as soon as the previous one gives us the definitive and necessary disappointment for the extinction of the feeling. According to Proust, love is so painful because we force ourselves, engulfed by it, to make our love object resemble this puppet created by our imagination, which, in addition to not corresponding in the slightest to our imagination, it causes pain when it turns out to be totally different from what one believed. Love is the appearance of perfection, the dream of relieving oneself from the burden of existence. And if this does not happen, if love does not fulfill what it promises, it condemns life. The love object is a philosophical question also because it represents the answer to the ultimate question of meaning, the request to give and receive tenderness, the appeal for a decisive meaning to come to life. Ultimately, the strongest and most intense prayer that can be formulated for salvation. Love is the most powerful gesture of transcendence that can be made. It means creating with the imagination a non existent object similar to personal desires. And so we end up loving something created by ourselves and for which the other provides the material, the warmth, and the aura of beauty. Another fundamental aspect is jealousy. It is an instrument of truth that investigates reality to obtain confirmation of research hypotheses. However, it will never be possible to identify the love correlate of this evanescent feeling, since it is alien to oneself and located in an obtainable place, the heart of the beloved, which by definition is the generator of lies and falsity. The truth of the object is therefore an illusion in which the narrator sees the ghosts generated by himself, a truth that does not consist in taking from the hidden, but in the creation of a lie. Albertine, the young woman with whom the narrator is in love, belongs to a world that will forever be unknown. The Proustian solution seems to be twofold. Either we accept this unknown by getting used to suffering to the point of wisely becoming indifferent to it, or we suffer from jealousy as a desperate attempt to conquer the unpregnable. In any case, jealousy for Proust is a total nonsense. Jealous love does not achieve anything and does not allow us to reach joy, thus demonstrating its total uselessness as a cognitive device. Jealousy is then an illusory remedy for suffering that leads to only temporary serenity and a prelude to a greater pain. Even if love is an unfounded plan of salvation, according to Proust, falling in love is a necessary stage of existence, because only by suffering because of it can one arrive at the truth of life. I believe that the dynamics of the love process can be found in this sentence, perhaps the most concise and effective that can be found in the research. A woman is of great use to our life if she is, instead of an element of happiness, an instrument of pain. And there is not a single one whose possession is as precious as that of truths that she discovers to us by making us suffer. Finding time again in the Proustian perspective of literature as a true life will therefore also mean discovering what truths suffering will have thought, where it was believed that only useless and irrevocable loss and oblivion had occurred, in this life marked by a pain initially believed absolutely irredeemable. Love, says Proust, is this curse that makes one foolish, a sort of bad luck, which cannot be acted upon otherwise than by waiting for the happy hour of liberation from the enchantment. Says Proust, in the meantime I tried in vain to act on them, not being cured by the experience which should have taught me, if it ever taught anything, that loving is a bad fate like those in the tales, against which we can do nothing until the enchantment has ceased. In this way, only by knowing it in all its aspects, both happy and dangerous, can one free oneself from the grip of this fickle feeling. In conclusion, if Proustian thesis is a great denial of the salvific reality of love, it nevertheless represents one of the fundamental moments of existence, which are part of its truth. Proust, in fact, dedicated approximately a third of his work to the feeling of love. A truth, however, that must be fully known in order to be able to dominate it as much as possible and to obtain more happiness and less pain.